So good morning, everybody. My name is Avril. I'm the manager of the Aran Islands Energy Co-op, or Corchamun Finnib Ilanor in Torrenta. And we are the pilot site managers for the Aran Islands pilot in the GEOFIT project. As Tony has outlined earlier, our pilot is the only residential pilot in the project. So for that reason, it was very interesting. Just to give you, I suppose, a little bit of background, I'm just waiting for this to change. So this is just an introduction, I suppose, to the Aran Islands and to the pilot. So the Aran Islands are located just here in this box on the west coast of Ireland. We are 3 islands with a total population of about 1,300 people, the majority of whom live on the largest island. So we have a population of just under 800 on the largest island. We're very, very popular with tourists, particularly in the summer season, because of the different fortresses and historic ruins and things like that that are here on the island, but also for some of our traditional cultural things, such as the language and some of the folklore and things like that relating to the islands as well. And we're also one of the few places in Ireland where Irish is spoken, so or Gaeilge, as we call it. So for that reason, the islands are very special. For the past 10 years or so, there has been a huge effort across the 3 islands to retrofit homes to reduce our carbon footprint, to become more energy efficient, more sustainable. And we had a huge focus, I suppose, on energy independence and I suppose a security of supply before the rest of Europe was talking about it as they are today. And I suppose we just feel the impact of all of the challenges that we face in terms of importing all of our energy from the mainland, and the vulnerability that has connected to it too. So one of the biggest challenges that we've come across when trying to, I suppose, transition to clean energy on the islands is the retrofitting of some of the older buildings. So many of the homes and buildings on the islands are very, very old, often a solid stone construction, which makes them very challenging to retrofit. And as you can see here, so on the picture on the right, it shows where the pilot site is located. So it's in a row of cottages that are semi-detached. And the picture here on the left is from another one of those cottages, which was taken during the late 19th century. So these are very old buildings, very typical of the islands. And I suppose they represent the challenge that we have in terms of retrofitting buildings and bringing them up to a standard where they're ready for a renewable heating system or to transition to clean energy. So for this reason, one of the cottages in that row was selected in the GEOFIT project, and we began, I suppose, the pre-intervention work, which was necessary to decide what the proper geothermal GEOFIT solution was going to be. So this work began by getting a record of the energy baseline use within the home. So this included their oil and coal consumption on a yearly basis, particularly obviously during the heating period of the year, but also it looked at monitoring their electricity consumption, the existing electricity consumption before our interventions. And also we installed some comfort monitoring equipment, monitoring the indoor temperature and humidity levels, as well as the outdoor weather conditions. And this was it. We were able to then see the connection between the outdoor temperature and the indoor temperature. And then we also set about gathering information on the building's construction type and the typology of the building itself. So the original portion of the cottage, or the front piece of the cottage, is the very old part, which is over 100 years old. But there had been, as there has been with almost all of those houses by this time, there have been different extensions built at different times, which are also still quite old at this point, but they're the newer portion of the house. And so a lot of time went into, I suppose, gathering all of this information on the existing heat distribution system and what type of insulation, if any, was in the home, and all of that, in order to get a complete picture and decide what solution we would be applying to this building. The data that we recorded was analysed by ILECO and all of the other technical partners in the project, and this helped us to, I suppose, figure out what the operation strategy would be. The building simulations, which were carried out by KTH and Opener, were also very important here as well, because it gave us an opportunity to see how the building was performing or how we expected it to perform with the new upgrades. One of the things that stuck out, I suppose, immediately was the severe lack of insulation in the home, and that the fabric or the envelope of the building was not ready for a heat pump or for a new low temperature heating system. This system, had we installed the system, it just would not have been efficient, and it would not have made much sense, and it would not have been satisfactory. It wouldn't have met the demand that and the needs of the homeowners. All of the work was coordinated locally by ourselves, but with a lot of technical input and assistance from all of the project partners. So it was a real team effort. The location of the pilot on an island, I suppose, has added possibly to, well, undoubtedly, to some of the logistical issues that we faced. But in reality, there's a lot of homes on islands all over Europe that would be in a similar position to ours. So we felt that if we could apply the geothermal solution to a residential dwelling here, then it can be applied absolutely anywhere. And we've been successful, which is fantastic. In order to apply the GEOFIT solution, as I mentioned, the envelope had to be addressed. So we contacted local contractors who were able to, I suppose, recommend the proper type of insulation for this home. So because it's a solid stone construction, we had two options essentially. So there was external wall insulation or internal wall insulation. Going the internal route was not really an option, because it would have meant a lot more upheaval within the home. So you're talking about dry lining and plastering all of the walls within the home. Again, you're talking about all of the fixtures that are stuck to the walls, you know, if, for example, maybe kitchen units and things like that. All of the insulation needs to go behind those. You're taking everything off the wall and then trying to reassemble the home again afterwards. And so that's not an easy solution, and it's not maybe a practical solution for most homes. So for that reason, we chose external wall insulation, which would be much faster, much simpler, and would be much more easily applied. And then we also upgraded the attic with fiberglass insulation, so that's very well insulated now as well. This picture of the house is actually from after the insulation was complete. So you can tell that from the outside it looks very similar to what it might have done beforehand. The colours are the same, but this picture here on the left shows exactly what is done during the insulation application. So there's quite, I suppose, this much of a layer added to the outside of the house, but really once the work is completed, you'd hardly be able to tell the difference at all. One of the main challenges when it came to the external insulation on this home was the electricity connection into the house. So just here on this side of the roof of the home is where the electricity cables come in. So in a lot of places, particularly in rural areas in Ireland, we don't have cables buried coming into the home. So they are on electricity poles, and then we have two connections here on the outside wall, and then the cable runs indoors. In order to make sure that the insulation was watertight and that there was nowhere for rainwater or for wind or anything like that to come in, we needed to have a bracket installed to bring those cables out past the insulation, the new level of the wall, if you like. And this took quite a while, because we can't, in Ireland, we're not allowed to use any electrician to do this work. It needs to be carried out by the grid operator, which is ESB Networks. So there was a little bit of a wait time on this, and it was probably something that we hadn't immediately thought of. But that was carried out. It was relatively simple to do, and then the insulation was able to be completed. And so this increased the thermal comfort of the home significantly for the householders. Then we were looking at the distribution system of the heat within the home. Our partners, Opener, have a mini-tech system which was installed. It's a very easy to install system with which results in very little change to the floor height of the home. So this was important when we were looking at areas like kitchen countertops and things like that. If we were raising the floor height by much more, then we would have to look at raising all of the kitchen units or the kitchen countertops and practical things like that, even doorways and stuff like that. So for this reason, the Minitech system was ideal. It's very, very quick to install as well. I think the entire installation took maybe 3 days from once the mats were laid to the screed being poured. So it was quite quick. The big challenge here, I suppose, was not to do with the system itself, but with the building that we were installing it in. So because the building is so old, none of the floors were level in any of the rooms of the home. So there was quite a bit of work there to be done in terms of removing the existing floor covering. Most of the floor coverings needed to be removed in order to get the floors to be level. Then we had to pour a self-leveling compound in every single room before the work could begin. Once that was done, the installation was very, very straightforward. So these are issues that may or may not occur in other buildings, although in older buildings you're almost guaranteed to run into an issue like this. Perhaps not in every single room or to the same degree, but certainly it's likely to occur. But again, it's one that's quite easy to solve. Once the installation was, or once we were ready to begin the installation, the foam underlay was laid, then these black plastic trays, which you can see here, and then the pipes were just fitted. This was all done by Eurotech Group in Ireland, and this picture down at the bottom just shows all of the manifolds where all of the pipes were running back to in the home. And then this is one of the rooms with new laminate flooring installed once the screed and everything had set. Then in terms of the new heating system, we installed an Auctioner 6 kilowatt heat pump. This was installed in the shed in the back garden. And you'll see I don't know if it's possible to see at the moment, but you'll see it in the next slide anyway. The connections to the borehole outside are just coming in at the side of the shed here. This is in the back garden of the home, so it's quite close to the house. And the installation of this went very, very smoothly. This is an off-the-shelf heat pump, I suppose, because we're talking about a dwelling. It didn't need a hybrid solution or a new developed heat pump. The challenges here were getting the rest of the building ready for the heat pump, I suppose. This then is showing the drilling which took place. So in order to carry out the drilling, Catalonia I hope I say this correctly, but Catalana de Perforaciones, probably not, travelled to the island. This was, I suppose, one of the biggest logistical challenges that we faced in the project, because we wanted to get as close to the house as possible so that we wouldn't have as long a run between the borehole and the heat pump. We needed to get a very, very small rig to the site. Obviously, for that to happen, we needed to bring it out by boat to the island. So once they arrived in Ireland, they travelled to Avril, and then you can see at the bottom photo here, they were shipped over by this vessel. Now there was a lot of weight involved, and we needed to look very carefully at the tides and the times that they were able to sail in order to be able to load and offload safely. But all of the equipment made it to and from the island in one piece. And once we did all of our preparation work, I suppose, it went very, very smoothly. So there was one borehole of 138 meters, and this was drilled directly outside the plant room. So the heat pump connections are just inside this wall here at the window. And it was all connected very, very simply. It all went very straightforward. And the most difficult part of this was, like I said, the logistical challenges. Unfortunately, we had been looking actually at the site behind the house, but it's across a roadway. So there was a lot more work involved than in that than having the borehole done directly in the back garden of the home. So this saved a lot of trench work, a lot of extra pipe work going out across the road, and obviously inconveniencing the neighbours by closing off the roadway, while all of that was being taken care of. So it was very important that we got a very small rig on tracks, and this proved very difficult. I suppose geothermal drilling in Ireland isn't maybe as popular for heating and cooling. We do see a lot of drilling done for water as a water source, but we don't typically have very many rigs of this kind of size available to carry out jobs like this. So we're hoping that that's something that will improve in the future as more and more homes are able to apply a geothermal solution as they change their heating system. I suppose the outcome, to put it very simply, there was a much improved thermal comfort level within the home. Rather than having the oil boiler, which it had originally, which gave you a very, very high temperature, the house got very, very hot. And then as soon as the boiler went off, it cooled down again very, very quickly. We now have a constant low level temperature heat within the home, which is much more comfortable for the householders. The home is much more efficient in terms of its retention of heat. So while we have still got the open fire or the coal solid fuel stove in the home, it hasn't yet been used since the heat pump was installed, and the homeowner doesn't see that he will have any need for it. But it is there as a source of, I suppose, intense heat should it be needed, depending on humidity levels and weather conditions on the island. At the moment, this is sealed, so it's not letting any of the heat out of the home. And then the envelope has been improved to such a degree that the home retains all of the heat very, very well from the heat pump, making it run very efficiently. This obviously means that the carbon footprint of the dwelling has been reduced significantly, and we also are expecting a very significant saving on the annual heating bills. Obviously, in the times that we live in at the moment and the rising energy costs all across Europe, it's very difficult to compare the euros before and after, but looking at the amount of kilowatts being used, it will make that very easy to calculate. We are still in the period of monitoring the post-intervention scenario, but like I said, we're expecting a significant saving on the annual heating bills as well, which is obviously a win-win for the householder too. I think that's, hopefully I haven't run through it too quickly for anybody, but if there are any questions, I'd be very happy to answer them.